was making a bagel for breakfast for my son this morning, and the thought just hit me that my family and I really don't want for much, or don't have any quote-unquote needs. You know, there's nothing that couldn't wait another day, another week, and whatever we think we quote-unquote need, we could probably do without. You know, like, I need a dozen eggs or or a gallon of milk. And that kind of sparked a thought that I've had quite a while about just the blessings I've had. And I talked about blessings before, but just to be thankful, you know, about what I have. And I noticed that throughout my life, events that happened throughout my life that brought me to this point where I am today are, and I wholeheartedly believe, a product of either divine intervention or Christianity itself. And you may think that I don't sound sure, but I'm just searching for the right words. Like I said, I wholeheartedly believe it has to do with Christ and what He did for humanity that brought me to this point. And I'll tell you why. By connecting the dots. The first dot was my dad, as far as being connected to Christianity. My family, I was born in Vietnam, and my family was Buddhist. We practiced Buddhism for the most part. You know, we weren't like devout Buddhists or anything like that, but that was the religion of the day, the religion of the time and culture. So it wasn't unusual that my family was Buddhist. But I didn't really quite get it, you know. We had, I don't know if this related to Buddhism, but we'd have shrines in our house to our relatives who have passed. And we would pray to them, and then, you know, I don't know if we lit incense. So we believe in the afterlife, and we believe in a higher being or a higher spirit, per se, but not necessarily directly Christ. Anyway, I was born during the height of the Vietnam War, and that's another discussion. But my father, who I call my father, my dad, adopted me. Adopted. And he was just a friend of the family. And he was a U.S. citizen and living in Vietnam. He saw the writing on the wall, per se, and married my mother, adopted all her children, and brought us to the States. And then when I turned 18, and when we all turned 18, we filed for citizenship. And it was because of him that we got to the United States. And I'll talk about him more in future videos. So that was the first point, and it wasn't apparent at the time, but it wasn't until later that I realized that he was a Christian, and he had struggles too. But the bottom line was that he was a Christian, and I believe he was there at that time, at that place, for a reason, to bring us out of that situation. Second point dot in the timeline of my life was, well, many little dots, let's put it that way. I remember growing up in South Texas, and a lot of the Hispanic kids that I went to school with, they probably went to Catholic school or Catholic church, or their parents were Catholic. And I remember this one little girl said during lunchtime, you know, kids just start talking about stuff, and this one girl said, you know, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ, or as God sees us. And hey, you know, at like 7 or 8 years old, I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. I didn't go to church growing up my whole life, so that was like, yeah, that's kind of a comforting thought, you know. But of course, if you don't get along with your brothers and sisters, that could be a problem, or that might be a downer. So anyway, the next dot was my wife. I remember praying to find a girlfriend. I remember that specifically, even though I wasn't a Christian at the time, but I knew that people prayed, and that people prayed for, you know, things that they want, or things to happen in their life. And my life growing up, again, I wasn't deprived or anything, but we weren't rich. We weren't dirt poor that we didn't have food to eat. But I do remember specifically, you know, when I was around 16, 17, you know, trying to impress the ladies, that I remember praying, you know, please God, let there be a girl out there that will be my girlfriend, or that will go out with me, or something like that. And sure enough, you know, my wife came along. So the next point in my journey that led me to Christianity was when I joined the Navy. There was at my first technical school. Well, in boot camp, one of my drill instructors you could tell, was a very religious man. Here's a picture of him, if I remember. But he wasn't like overtly Christian. He wasn't like trying to, you know, recruit kids to being Christians. But he always talked about, hey, you know, I'm collecting gear, because we had extra stuff that they gave us that most kids just either threw away or just kind of didn't know what to do with them. But he would collect for charity. And you know, now that I look back at it, it's like, well, you know, I wouldn't say only, but more than likely, a person with a good heart would do something like that. Anyway, so then my first duty station after boot camp, I went to a technical school, and the chapel there, it was a non-denominational chapel on base, and they had a program, and I don't even know how I found it. I just kind of stumbled on it. And they had a program after classes, because our classes, I believe, start at like 7. We had to get up at 6, march to school by 7, and the classes, I think, ran till like 4. So then after 4 o'clock, or I think it was like at 5 or 6, 1800, 6 o'clock, the chapel had like had social night, where you could go and they had pizza or hot dogs, hamburgers, and you could just sit and watch a movie. They had games, and I can't remember if it was every night or Wednesday nights or Saturdays or something like that, but I remember going to a couple of the social nights, and it was really, really comforting, especially, you know, when you're away from home, away from your family, and they just made you feel at home. And I thought, hey, this is great. You know, I can definitely get into this. So then, fast forward. So that was another dot. Fast forward to a little bit further, to my first duty station in San Diego, and I was still going to school in San Diego, because first you went to your trade school, what you were going to do for a living. They call it A school. And then I went to San Diego to my weapon system school. Basically, I was a helicopter mechanic, so I had to go to school to learn about the specific helicopter I was going to work on in my field, in the airframes and hydraulic school. But while I was there, I had a roommate who was very religious, and you know, he wasn't in your face, you know, you need to believe in God, and you know, if you don't, you're gonna go to hell. No, he was very very polite, and you know, he just invited me to do things, and I had nothing better to do on some nights, especially weeknights, and he invited me to go to his church, and it was one of those Southern Baptist church, you know, with the singing and the clapping. And if you ever saw the Blues Brothers, it was just short of that. Just short of that type of Southern Baptist church. But it was a good experience. It was a good experience, and it brought me closer to Christ. Fast forward to college, well, to the Navy. You know, I met a lot of good people in the Navy throughout the years, and yeah, the first 4 years we really didn't find a church that we wanted to go to. You know, we were still trying to. My wife was trying to go to college. You know, I was still nobody in the Navy, and so we didn't really go to church. But I still felt kind of connected to Christ through my wife. And when we moved to Virginia, 4 years in San Diego, my second 4 years in the Navy, we went to Virginia, and we found a nice little church there. Went there, and it was, you know, the preacher there was really good. He was a Vietnam War vet. He was a chaplain in the Vietnam War, and you know, he's seen combat, but he was a very gentle soul. But I just, not because of him, but you know, I don't think I truly had opened up to Christ, even though, you know, my spiritual journey had been long up to that point. And so I just was kind of going through the motions, you know, going to church, praying, and trying to do what Christians do. And then after I left the Navy, I went to college, and here's where it really starts to kind of sink in. I was an inspector in the Navy. My second 4 years in the Navy, I did inspections. I know that sounds kind of vague, but I did inspections in the Navy. And I went to college. I got out, went to college, got my mechanical engineering degree, and I threw away all my logbooks and stuff that I had to keep as an inspector. Well, Wouldn't you know it, long story short, the first job I got out of college was doing the same kind of inspections that I did in the Navy. But I was just happy to have a job. I didn't really think much of it. And so, you know, I was kind of like, oh man, I threw all that stuff away, but I didn't need it. You know, it's kind of one of those things, well, that would have come in handy, but I didn't have it, so I just made do without it. And then the next job I had was for another company that did inspections. And then I moved to Indiana and worked for a company where I worked in the department where they did inspections. And now I work for a company that does inspections. So, you know, just the progression of things. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But, you know, I talked about, I commented on it in the last video, that to me, there were too many things that happened in a row to be left to just random chance. And my faith says it was all God's doing. Some people, you know, want to believe it's still random chance. That's fine, but you know, I'm convinced. So anyway, that's my rambling for this morning. Have a good day. God bless. Take care.